Captain Marcus Hale had always expected his story to end on a battlefield. For years he had fought across ruined colonies, asteroid belts, and frozen worlds where the war between humanity and the alien Seralith had burned like a fire without end. He had been wounded before, but each time his will pulled him back. This time, however, when he closed his eyes after the explosion, he thought it would be the last. Darkness swallowed him and he felt himself falling into silence. But silence did not last forever. He opened his eyes slowly, as if dragging them out of heavy sleep. Instead of the harsh lights of a human military hospital or the metal walls of a ship's infirmary, he found himself staring up at a ceiling made of smooth white stone that glowed faintly. It was not light from lamps, it was as if the stone itself shone softly. Marcus blinked. His chest rose and fell with steady breathing. He was alive. That was the first surprise. The second was that he felt no pain. His last memory was of fire, broken steel, and blood soaking through his armor, yet now his body felt whole. He sat up slowly, scanning the room. The walls were curved, elegant, and covered with strange carvings that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The air smelled clean, with a faint scent of flowers. A window opened to a sky filled with two suns, one gold, one pale blue. "This is not Earth," he whispered to himself. His soldier's instinct sharpened. Where was he? Prison? Experiment chamber? Before he could stand, he heard soft footsteps. The sound was not boots on metal, but light, almost like a breeze moving across stone. Then she appeared. A figure stepped into the room, carrying a small bowl that released a faint steam. She was tall, graceful, and unlike anyone Marcus had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, pale silver with hints of lavender under the light. Her hair fell long and smooth, like liquid crystal, catching the glow of the chamber. Her eyes were the most striking, large, clear, and shining like two fragments of sapphire. She wore a robe of white and silver, simple yet elegant, flowing around her as if it were part of her. In her hands she carried the bowl with care, and when she looked at Marcus she smiled gently. "You are awake," she said, her voice calm and musical. Marcus froze. He had fought Seralith before. He had seen them on battlefields, tall figures in armor, their faces hidden behind masks, but never like this. Never so close, never so peaceful. His hand reached instinctively for a weapon, but there was none. He was unarmed, wearing only a simple tunic of light cloth. "Where am I?" he demanded. His voice came out rough, more like a soldier's bark than a polite question. The alien woman placed the bowl on a table beside the bed and lowered her head respectfully. "You are safe. This is a chamber of rest within Seralith territory. You were brought here after the battle. Your wounds have been healed." Marcus stared at her, suspicion rising. "Seralith territory? Then I'm a prisoner." She lifted her gaze, her sapphire-like eyes steady. "No, you are not a prisoner. You are honored." "Honored?" Marcus frowned. Nothing about war between humans and Seralith included honor. He remembered villages burned, cities destroyed, soldiers falling by the thousands. Why would they speak of honor now? The woman stepped back slightly, folding her hands in front of her. "My name is Lysira. I have been assigned to you. I will be your caretaker, your guide, and your servant while you recover." Marcus's breath caught for a second. A servant? His mind struggled to understand. Humans and Seralith had been enemies for decades. And yet here he was, alive, healed, and being offered service. He narrowed his eyes. "What kind of trick is this? Why am I here? Why are you here?" Lysira did not flinch at his harsh tone. She only tilted her head slightly as if studying him. "Because you saved lives, Captain Marcus Hale. Not only human lives, you saved Seralith as well. My people do not forget such acts. You were granted a gift. That gift is me." The words fell heavy between them. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "A gift? People are not gifts." For the first time, Lysira's calm expression shifted. A faint smile curved her lips, not mocking but gentle, as if she were pleased by his answer. "Perhaps that is why you were chosen." Marcus shook his head, frustration and confusion twisting inside him. His soldier's mind searched for answers. Could this be political manipulation? A trick to use him as propaganda? He had heard of alien strategies, psychological warfare, attempts to sway hearts. Could this be the same? Yet as he studied Lysira, he saw no hostility in her eyes, only patience. He pushed the blanket aside and stood, testing his legs. They felt strong, steady. His scars were gone. The only marks left were faint lines across his skin, reminders of wounds that had already healed. It unsettled him. No human medicine could work this fast. Lysra took a step closer, cautious, as if unsure how near she was allowed. You should not strain yourself too soon. Your body may be whole, but strength takes time. Marcus gave her a hard look. I've survived worse. She nodded, not arguing. Yes, that is why you are still here. The silence that followed pressed against him. He had faced fire, bullets, and plasma blades, but this silence was different. It forced him to question, to think. Finally, Marcus sat back on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face with his hands. So let me understand. I'm in Seralith space. I'm not a prisoner. You're here as... what exactly? A reward? Yes, Lysra replied simply. A reward for courage. A life debt repaid. The words carried weight. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his chest. Memories rushed back. He had pulled civilians from rubble, dragged wounded soldiers to cover, and in the chaos, he had seen a Seralith child crying under a collapsed wall. Without thinking, he had lifted the wall and pulled the child free, shielding them from falling debris. He had expected nothing in return. It had been instinct. Humanity, he believed, was not about who the enemy was. It was about saving lives when he could. Was that what this was about? Had the Seralith seen? He looked at Lysra again. She stood silently, waiting for his response as if she had all the time in the world. Marcus exhaled slowly. If this is real, if I'm really free, then I want answers. I want to know why the Seralith would honor a human, and I want to know what happens to me now. Lysra inclined her head. Then I will give you answers. In time, for now you must rest, and trust. Trust. The word felt heavy in Marcus's chest. Trust was not something he gave easily, not to strangers, certainly not to enemies. But as he looked into Lysra's calm eyes, a small part of him wondered, just maybe, if the war was not as simple as he had always believed. The hours passed slowly after that. Marcus explored the chamber, noting details. There were no doors in the human sense, only archways that glowed with light when passed. The bed was soft but firm, shaped from some living material. The table held simple tools, none dangerous. Lysra stayed nearby, moving quietly, preparing food from alien fruits and grains. She offered him a dish that shimmered faintly like liquid pearl. He tasted it carefully. It was sweet, light, and filled his stomach with warmth. You see, Lysra said softly. Not poison, only nourishment. Marcus smirked faintly despite himself. You don't make this easy. I'm used to enemies being more obvious. Her lips curved again in that small smile. Perhaps that is why you do not understand us yet. When night came, if it could be called night under twin suns that dimmed but never vanished, Marcus lay awake, staring at the glowing ceiling. His mind churned with questions, doubts, and unease. But one truth stood clear. He was alive, healed, and given something no soldier had ever been given before. A reward. A servant. An alien maid who looked at him not with hatred but with quiet respect. And Marcus Hale, the human soldier who had survived 1,000 battles, realized that his greatest fight might not be against weapons or enemies, but against the unknown path that had just opened before him. The days after Marcus Hale first woke were strange ones. He expected pain, and there was pain, but it was softer now, not sharp. The wounds on his chest had closed faster than any human medicine could have managed. The chamber around him glowed with warm light, and the air carried a faint, sweet scent like flowers after rain. Each morning when he opened his eyes, Lysra was there. Always calm, always graceful, her silver-tinted skin catching the glow of the chamber lamps. She moved quietly, yet everything she did had purpose, preparing his food, arranging the glowing crystals that seemed to hum with energy, checking his bandages with delicate hands. Marcus found it difficult to look at her sometimes. Not because she frightened him, but because he could not understand her. She was an alien, a member of the very people who had once fought his own, and yet every time he asked, "Why are you doing this?" she gave the same answer, "Because you are honored. You are rewarded. It is my duty to serve." But Marcus was a soldier, and soldiers did not trust rewards from former enemies. On the 5th day of his recovery, Lysra guided him from the chamber into a large hall. His steps were still unsteady, but he was stronger now. The hall opened into a balcony that overlooked the Seralith capital. Marcus froze. The city stretched far beyond what he expected. Towers of crystal curved upward like trees of light. Bridges of silver stone arched between them, glowing softly with energy. Floating platforms carried people across the skies, and gardens of strange, luminous plants decorated every level. For a long moment, he said nothing. "It is beautiful," Lysera said. Watching his reaction, Marcus narrowed his eyes. "And yet your people nearly destroyed mine." Lysera did not deny it. She folded her hands in front of her. "War is a scar, Captain. Our world has many scars, but scars do not stop life from continuing." Her words lingered with him. He could not argue with them, but neither could he accept them so easily. That evening, Lysera brought him a tray of food. The dishes were strange. Soft, glowing fruits, spiced roots, and something that resembled fish but shimmered with blue light. Marcus eyed it with suspicion. "You're not trying to poison me, are you?" Lysera tilted her head, her crystalline eyes unblinking. "If I wished you dead, Captain, I would not have healed you." He gave a small, rough laugh. "Fair point," he tried a piece. It was sweet, with a sharp aftertaste, but not unpleasant. Lysera seemed pleased. "Your body will adapt. Human and Seralith are different, but not so different that you cannot live here." Marcus set the tray down, frowning. "Live here? You make it sound like I'm supposed to stay." "You are free to leave when your body allows," she said softly. "But the Council believes you have a role to play." He leaned back, folding his arms. "Council?" "The Seralith Council of Elders," Lysera explained. "It was they who decided you would be honored. Some among them believe you are a bridge between our peoples." "And the others?" Marcus asked, her eyes lowered for a moment. "The others do not agree. They think rewarding a human dishonors us. They think it is dangerous." Marcus wasn't surprised. He had seen enough politics in human armies. Allies and enemies shifted like sand. The next day, Lysera guided him to the council chamber. It was a vast hall of crystal pillars and silver floors, glowing symbols carved into the walls. The elders stood in a circle, tall and regal in robes that shimmered like liquid light. Marcus stood before them, still weak, but holding his posture like the soldier he was. Lysera stayed behind him, silent as protocol demanded. The first elder spoke. "Captain Marcus Hale, you risked your life not only for humans, but for Seralith civilians during the Battle of Arios. Such honor cannot be ignored. We have granted you our protection." Another elder, taller, with sharper features, stepped forward. His voice carried disapproval. "Protection? You give him too much. He is a soldier of an enemy species. His kind burned our colonies. His kind slaughtered our families." Marcus clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, but he knew anger would only worsen things. The first elder raised a hand. "Enough, Torvin. War has taken much from us all. But this man did what many would not. He saved lives, even those not his own." The elder named Torvin's eyes narrowed. "One act does not erase years of blood." Marcus finally spoke, his voice firm but controlled. "I don't ask you to forget what humans did. I won't even ask for forgiveness. I just know this: when I was on that battlefield, I saw people, not enemies. And I made my choice." The hall went silent. The elders studied him. Some nodded slightly, others remained cold. At last the first elder said, "Then you will remain under our watch. Lysera will continue to serve you, not as a chain, but as a guide. Learn from her, as she will learn from you. In time, perhaps trust will grow." When they left the chamber, Marcus was tense. Lysera walked quietly beside him until they reached the balcony again. "You spoke with honesty," she said. "The elders value that." Marcus let out a sharp breath. "Some of them looked like they wanted me thrown out an airlock." "Not all change is welcome," Lysera admitted. "But seeds grow slowly, even in harsh soil." He looked at her then, really looked. She was not just repeating words of duty. She believed in what she said. For the first time, Marcus wondered if maybe this maid was more than she appeared. Over the next several days, Lysera began teaching Marcus about Seralith culture. She showed him their art, crystal carvings that glowed with inner light, shifting colors as one moved around them. She explained their music, soft tones that resonated in the chest rather than the ears. She described their history, an old world nearly destroyed by their own civil wars before they learned to unite. "Unity is fragile," she said one evening as they walked through the gardens. "It can last centuries, but one spark can undo it. That is why the rebels are dangerous. They do not see the future, only the wounds of the past." Marcus nodded slowly. "Humans aren't much different. We fight for old wounds too." She looked at him with those crystalline eyes. Perhaps that is why you understand us more than most. Still, not all was peace. On his walks through the city, Marcus noticed the way some Seralith stared at him. Some bowed slightly in respect, but others turned away, their expressions hard. Once, as he passed a marketplace, a Seralith vendor spat on the ground and muttered words Marcus could not understand. But he knew enough to feel the hate behind them. He did not react, but Lysera's hand tightened slightly on the edge of her robe. Later, she said quietly, "Not all will accept you. Some will never accept you." "I've been hated before," Marcus said simply. "Soldiers don't fight for love. We fight because it's the job." "But now," Lysera said, her voice soft, "you fight for something more than a job." Marcus stopped walking. Her words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. He looked at her, searching for a reason to argue, but found none. One night, Marcus woke to find Lysera sitting near his chamber, her head bowed, her hands folded in thought. "You don't have to watch me while I sleep," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. "It is my duty." "Maybe," Marcus said, shifting to sit up, "but it doesn't mean you have to." For a moment she hesitated. Then softly she admitted, "I choose to." Marcus didn't know what to say. He was a soldier, trained for battle, not for quiet words in the night. But something in her answer told him she saw more in him than just a wounded human. And slowly, against his own instinct, he began to trust her. But even as trust grew, Marcus felt the weight of something larger. The council's split opinions, the watchful eyes of the people, the whispers of rebels that Lysera sometimes mentioned. He was not just a soldier recovering from wounds anymore. He was a symbol, and symbols were dangerous things in times of unrest. As he looked out at the glowing city one evening, Marcus knew the fragile peace could not last. Something was coming, and he would have to decide, not just for himself but for both worlds. And yet when he glanced at Lysera standing nearby, silent and steady as always, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could face it together. The days turned into weeks, and Captain Marcus Hale began to understand that his time among the Seralith was not going to be short. What had started as confusion and suspicion slowly became something else. He was still cautious, but now he was learning. Lysera was his constant companion. She taught him about Seralith customs, their music that sounded like rivers flowing over stone, their history carved into glowing murals, and their honor code that valued sacrifice above victory. Marcus listened carefully, storing every detail. He had been a soldier for too long to waste information. Every word she gave him might matter, and yet it was not only strategy that kept him listening. There was something about the way she spoke, patient and steady, that made him forget he was in enemy space. At times, her calm voice even reminded him of the quiet evenings his mother used to create back on Earth, when the war felt far away. One evening, Marcus walked with Lysera through the gardens of the Seralith city. The air shimmered with soft lights from plants that glowed naturally in the dusk. 2 moons rose above them, silver and pale violet. Marcus folded his arms across his chest. "I've seen your warriors fight," he said, remembering battles from years past. "But this doesn't look like the world of soldiers. It looks peaceful." Lysera looked at the glowing flowers, touching one gently with her hand. "That is because peace is what we always wanted. We fight only because we must survive, just like you." Marcus studied her for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Maybe. But not all of your people agree with peace, do they?" Lysera's hand froze on the flower. Her eyes shifted toward him, searching his face. For the first time, she did not answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower, as if she feared the wind might carry her words away. "There are those who believe you should not be here. They see you as a danger. They whisper that a human cannot be honored. They fear you will break what balance remains." Marcus wasn't surprised. He had felt the stares whenever he walked the streets with her. Seralith citizens watched him with wide eyes, some curious, some respectful, but others filled with sharp suspicion. "So I'm a problem for your people," Marcus said quietly. "A problem with a face." Lysera shook her head firmly. "No, you are proof that even in war one can act with honor." "But not everyone accepts that. Some would rather see enemies forever." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And I suppose they'd rather see me dead." She did not answer, but her silence said enough. Later that week, Lysera began teaching him more than just culture. She waited until they were alone in the training halls of the Serelith Keep, where crystal pillars stood like silent guardians. She handed him a slim curved staff made of glowing metal. "This is a defense staff," she explained. "Not made for killing, but for protecting. If anyone tries to harm you, you must know how to survive." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're training me to fight your own people?" Lysera's eyes met his without hesitation. "I am training you to live. That is my duty." For hours she guided him. The staff was light, almost too light, but when swung it bent with the air, humming faintly. She taught him the Serelith stance, feet grounded, movements flowing like water. Marcus stumbled at first, but his soldier's instincts learned quickly. His human style was forceful, direct. The Serelith style was graceful, deceptive, almost like a dance. Sweat ran down his face as he blocked her strikes and countered with his own. "Not bad for a soldier," she said with a small smile. "Not bad for a maid," he replied, and for the first time, they both laughed together. The tension came to a head during a ceremonial feast held by the Serelith Council. The hall was vast, lit by floating crystals that bathed the space in blue light. Music filled the air, soft and haunting. Leaders from across the Serelith worlds gathered, dressed in robes of deep colors, their voices low as they discussed matters Marcus could not fully understand. Marcus sat at Lysera's side, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. Whispers passed like shadows across the room. He could almost hear their thoughts. Why is a human here? Why is he honored? Lysera leaned closer. "Stay calm. They must see you as strong but not hostile." Marcus gave her a short nod, though his hand itched for a weapon he did not have. The feast continued with speeches and songs, but the unease in the room grew thicker. Marcus noticed a group of Serelith sitting apart, their eyes sharp and hard. One of them slipped out quietly, and Marcus's instincts screamed. He leaned toward Lysera. "Something's wrong." Before she could answer, the lights dimmed suddenly. A loud crack echoed through the hall. From the shadows, masked figures rushed in, carrying blades that glowed with red light. Rebels. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed and scattered. The council guards moved quickly, but the attackers were fast. One charged straight toward the high table where Marcus and Lysera sat. Marcus did not think. His training kicked in. He grabbed the defense staff Lysera had given him earlier. It had been placed beside his seat for ceremony, and raised it just in time to block the glowing blade. Aimed at Lysera's chest, the clash rang like thunder. Sparks flew. Marcus twisted the staff, forcing the rebel back, then swung hard, knocking the blade aside. He moved in front of Lysera, shielding her with his body. "Stay behind me," he shouted. Another rebel came from the side. Marcus spun the staff in a wide arc, striking the attacker across the shoulder. The Serelith cried out and stumbled back. The weapon hummed with energy, stronger than any human weapon Marcus had known. Lysera called out, her voice steady even in the chaos. "Marcus, left side!" He turned just in time, blocking another strike. The impact jolted through his arms, but he held firm. With a sharp kick, he sent the rebel stumbling, then drove the staff forward, knocking the blade from their hand. Around them, guards were finally pushing back the rebels, but the fight was far from over. One masked attacker broke through the line and lunged again toward Lysera. She froze for a heartbeat, too close, too fast. Marcus's chest burned with sudden fury. He stepped forward, swinging the staff with all his strength. The weapon cracked against the rebel's chest, sending them crashing to the floor. Breathing hard, Marcus stood tall, the staff humming in his grip. He looked around, ready for more. But slowly the noise began to fade. The rebels, seeing their attack failing, retreated into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as they had come. The hall was left in silence, broken only by heavy breathing and the cries of the wounded. Marcus lowered the staff, his muscles trembling with the rush of battle. He turned toward Lysera. She was safe, though her eyes were wide, filled with something he had not seen before. Fear, and something else he could not name. "You saved me," she whispered. Marcus gave a short, rough laugh, trying to catch his breath. "I told you I've survived worse," but inside he knew it was more than survival. He had chosen to stand between her and danger, just as he had done for human comrades in battle. Enemy or not, she was under his protection now. Later, after the hall was secured and the council tended to, Marcus sat in a quiet chamber with Lysera. His arm still ached, but his mind was sharper than ever. "They weren't here for the council," he said firmly. "They were here for me." Or for you? Lysra sat across from him, her hands folded tightly. Both. They wanted to end the symbol we represent. You, the human honored by Sarilith. Me, the one assigned to you. Together we threaten their hatred. Marcus frowned. So this is bigger than just me. I've become a target for your politics. Lysra's eyes met his, steady but full of concern. Yes, and it will not be the last attempt. You must be ready. Marcus leaned back, exhaling slowly. He had fought wars, led men, faced enemies head-on. But this was different. This was not only about fighting rebels. It was about surviving in a world where his very existence was a weapon for both sides, and yet, as he looked at Lysra, who had risked herself to train him, who stood at his side through suspicion and attack, he felt something new. Not just duty, not just survival, a bond. For the first time, Marcus Hale wondered if his place in this alien world was not just a reward. Perhaps it was a test of what it truly meant to be human. The attack on the ceremonial feast had shaken the Sarilith capital to its core. Guards patrolled every street, council chambers buzzed with emergency meetings, and rumors spread faster than the wind. Some whispered that rebels had grown too bold. Others claimed that Marcus Hale himself had brought danger into their world. Marcus felt the weight of every whisper. Wherever he walked, eyes followed him. Some were filled with respect, others with fear or anger. Lysra stayed at his side always, calm as ever. But even she could not hide the tension in her shoulders. It did not take long before the council summoned Marcus to stand before them. The chamber was vast, shaped like a circle, its walls lined with tall crystals that pulsed softly with light. The council members sat on curved seats rising upward, looking down upon him like judges. Marcus stood in the center, his back straight, his hands at his sides. Lysra stood a step behind him, silent as was custom. A voice from the council spoke, deep and clear. Captain Marcus Hale of Earth, you have defended our people both in battle and at the feast. Your actions have been seen. Your honor is recognized. Marcus nodded slightly, saying nothing. He had learned that words carried great weight here, and he did not want to waste them. Another counselor leaned forward. Her robes shimmered with deep green. But your presence has divided our people. Some believe you are proof that peace is possible. Others believe you are a danger to everything we are. For this reason, we present you with a choice. Marcus's jaw tightened. A choice. He had been expecting this. The first counselor spoke again. You may return to your homeworld, Earth. If you choose this, we will send you with honor as a friend, not as a prisoner. Your people will see you as a hero. Your name will be carried in history as one who was respected even by former enemies. The words cut deep. A hero on Earth. That had been his dream once, long ago, before endless battles and sleepless nights had turned him into a weary soldier. To go home to see the oceans and skies of Earth again, to hear human voices that did not carry suspicion or alien mystery. It was tempting, but the council was not finished. If you choose to remain, the green-robed counselor continued, you will live among us. You will no longer be an outsider but part of our people. You will stand as a bridge between Sarilith and human. You will have Lysra by your side always. Together you may shape a new path. The chamber fell silent. All eyes locked on Marcus. His heart beat heavily in his chest. Return to Earth where duty and old comrades waited, or stay here in a world that did not fully trust him, but where he had begun to feel something he had not felt in years. Hope. He swallowed hard, his voice low but steady. If I return to Earth, what will happen to her? He gestured slightly toward Lysra without turning his head. The council murmured quietly before answering. Lysra will return to her people. Her duty will be ended. Marcus finally turned to look at her. Lysra's expression did not change, but her eyes, those deep sapphire eyes, betrayed a flicker of something. Fear. He looked back at the council. And if I stay, she will remain by your side, the council answered simply. That night, Marcus did not sleep. He paced his chamber, his thoughts colliding like storm waves. Earth or Sarilith, home or something else? Lysra prepared tea from glowing leaves and placed it on the table. She did not speak, simply watching him. Finally, Marcus stopped and faced her. Say it, he said sharply. You've been quiet since they gave me the choice. What do you want me to do? Lysra lowered her gaze. It is not for me to say. Marcus stepped closer. Don't give me that council answer. I'm asking you. For a long moment she was silent. Then she raised her head and he saw it in her eyes, the truth she tried so hard to hide. "I want you to stay," she whispered. The words struck him harder than any blade. She looked away quickly, ashamed of her own boldness. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the chamber walls trembled. The sound of distant explosions shook the air. Alarms blared outside. Lysera's eyes widened. The rebels. Marcus grabbed the defense staff that had never left his side since the feast. "Then I guess my choice will have to wait." The attack was larger than anything before. Fire lit the sky outside as ships broke through the capital's defenses. Rebel soldiers poured into the streets, their glowing blades cutting through guards. Crystals shattered, towers burned. Marcus and Lysera ran through the chaos, heading toward the council hall. Civilians fled in panic. Guards tried to hold the lines, but the rebels moved with brutal precision. "This isn't just an attack," Marcus growled. "It's a full rebellion." Lysera kept pace beside him, her robe flowing like silver flame. "They will try to kill the council. If they succeed, the city will fall." When they reached the hall, rebels had already broken through the gates. Marcus leaped into the fight, his staff humming as it clashed against glowing blades. He moved with sharp, direct strikes, human force mixed with Seralith grace. Lysera stayed close, using her own smaller staff to deflect attacks. "Marcus! Left side!" she shouted, her voice clear even in the roar of battle. He spun, blocking a strike, then slammed the staff into his attacker's chest, sending them crashing into the wall. Sweat ran down his face, but his focus was absolute. One rebel broke past the guards and rushed straight toward the council chamber doors. Without thinking, Marcus sprinted and tackled him, both rolling across the floor. The rebel slashed wildly, the blade grazing Marcus's arm. Pain burned, but he held on, ripping the weapon from the rebel's hand and smashing the staff across his mask. The rebel went limp. He stood quickly, breathing hard. More rebels pressed in. Lysera joined him, her face set with fierce determination. For the first time, Marcus saw not just a maid or caretaker, but a warrior hidden beneath. She moved with speed, her staff striking in perfect rhythm with his. Together they fought like two halves of the same blade. Hours felt like days. Finally, with the help of reinforcements, the rebels began to break. Their ships retreated, their soldiers scattered. The capital burned, but it still stood. Marcus leaned on his staff, his chest heaving. His arm throbbed with pain, but he was alive. Lysera stood beside him, her robe torn, her hair loose, but her eyes still bright. The council emerged from the chamber, shaken but alive. They looked at Marcus with new eyes, not just as a guest, not just as a symbol, but as the one who had stood between them and death. The first counselor raised his voice. "You see, even in our darkest hour, he fought for us. He is not our enemy. He is proof that the human spirit can stand with us, not against us." The chamber filled with voices, some agreeing, some still doubtful. But Marcus barely heard. He looked at Lysera, who was staring back at him. He realized something in that moment. His choice was no longer just about Earth or Seralith. It was about who he wanted to be. A soldier who returned to the old war, or a man who built something new. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The answer was forming in his heart, even if he had not spoken it yet. That night, as fires still smoldered in the distance, Marcus sat with Lysera in the quiet garden. The glowing plants bent gently in the breeze. His arm was bandaged, but his spirit was steady. "Back on Earth," he said quietly, "I used to think I was fighting for home. But now I wonder if home isn't just a place. Maybe it's the people you fight beside, the people you protect." Lysera's eyes softened. "And what does your heart tell you now?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. After all the battles, the pain, the doubts, he had found something he had not expected. "My heart tells me I've already made my choice," he said. Lysera did not speak, but her faint smile said she understood. The war was not over. The rebels were not gone, but Marcus Hale, human soldier, had found a path that was no longer about duty alone. It was about belonging, and that was a battle he was ready to fight. The city still bore the scars of the last attack. Towers were broken, streets blackened by fire, and the air carried the faint scent of smoke even days after. But the Seralith capital was alive. Workers rebuilt, healers tended to the wounded, and guards doubled their watch. Marcus Hale moved through the streets with Lysera at his side. He saw the way people looked at him now. There was still suspicion in some eyes, yes, but there was also respect. They had seen him fight for their survival. They had seen him protect, not destroy. But Marcus knew this peace was fragile. The rebels had not been defeated completely. They had only retreated, and when rebels retreat, it is never the end. It is only the beginning of something larger. He was right. 2 weeks later, Seralith scouts brought news. A massive rebel fleet was gathering. Ships stolen, soldiers recruited, weapons charged. They were coming not just for the capital but for the entire council. If they won, the Seralith would fall into chaos and any hope of peace between human and Seralith would die with it. The council called another emergency meeting. This time, Marcus stood among them not as a guest but as a voice. His presence was no longer a question. It was a necessity. The first counselor's voice echoed in the chamber. The rebels prepare for war. If they take our city, we will not recover. We must fight. Another counselor shook his head. Our forces are scattered. We are weak after the last attack. We cannot stand alone. Marcus stepped forward. His voice carried the steady tone of a soldier who had faced impossible odds before. Then don't stand alone. Call Earth, call humanity. The chamber stirred with murmurs. One of the counselors frowned. You would bring humans here? After decades of war? Yes, Marcus said firmly. Because this isn't just your fight anymore. The rebels won't stop with Seralith. They'll go after humans too. You need allies, and I can get them. Silence followed. Then slowly the counselor in green nodded. Perhaps this is what the stars intended, to test whether we can truly rise above war. And so, Marcus sent a message to Earth. For hours he stood in the communication hall, speaking directly to generals, commanders, and old comrades. They were shocked to see him alive. More shocked to hear where he was. Some accused him of betrayal. Others listened with narrowed eyes. But Marcus told them everything. About saving Seralith civilians, about the rebels' threat, about the chance to stand not as enemies, but as allies. He spoke not like a politician, but like a soldier who had bled for both sides. Finally, Earth agreed. A small fleet would come, not an army, but enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Seralith. Humanity, too, had tired of endless war. When the rebel fleet arrived, the skies above the Seralith capital turned into fire. Ships darkened the horizon, weapons glowing. The air trembled with their engines, but waiting for them was a sight no one expected. Seralith warships flying beside human vessels, their lights shining together. For the first time in history, the two stood as one. On the ground, soldiers gathered, Seralith warriors with their curved staffs and armor of crystal, and human troops in steel armor, rifles at the ready. Marcus stood in front of them, his voice rising above the noise. They think we cannot fight together. They think we will break apart. But today we show them what it means to stand as one. Seralith and humans side by side. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as defenders of something greater. Today we fight not for war, but for tomorrow. The soldiers roared in answer, human voices and alien voices mixing into one sound that shook the air. Lysra stood just behind him, her eyes shining with pride. You speak like a leader of two worlds, she whispered. Marcus glanced at her, his jaw set. I'm just a soldier who's tired of losing the wrong battles. The battle began with thunder. The rebel fleet rained fire from above, striking the city's shields. Towers shook, crystals cracked, and the ground trembled under the force. But the Seralith defenses held, bolstered by human technology brought just days before. In the skies, human fighters darted between Seralith cruisers, weaving patterns of light as they clashed with rebel ships. Explosions painted the heavens red and gold. On the ground, the rebels struck with fury, storming through the gates in waves. Marcus led the front lines himself, his defense staff glowing as he moved with precision and strength. At his side, Lysra fought with equal fire, her strikes flowing like water. Human rifles barked sharp bursts of energy while Seralith staffs hummed in harmony. The two styles of war merged into something new, something powerful. Rebel after rebel fell, but more kept coming. Hold the line, Marcus shouted, blocking a blade and driving his staff into the enemy's chest. No ground lost, his voice carried, pulling strength from the soldiers around him. The rebels pushed hardest toward the council chamber, determined to break through. Marcus saw it and moved fast, gathering a small force of humans and Seralith to cut them off. In the chaos, he fought face to face with the rebel leader, a tall Seralith in black armor, his blade glowing blood red. You are a fool, human, the leader snarled. You think you can change what we are? We will never stand with your kind. We will never bow. Marcus's staff clashed against the blade with a crack that echoed across the square. I'm not asking you to bow, he growled. I'm asking you to stop tearing apart what could be better. The duel was fierce. The rebel leader struck with speed, his blade slashing like lightning. Marcus blocked, parried, countered, every muscle burning. Lysera joined, striking from the side, forcing the leader back step by step. Finally, with a roar, Marcus slammed the staff down hard, breaking the rebel's guard. Lysera struck swiftly, disarming him. The rebel leader fell to his knees, defeated. The battlefield went silent. Without their leader, the rebels began to scatter, their lines breaking. Ships fled, soldiers dropped weapons. The tide turned. The battle was won. When the dust settled, Marcus stood on the steps of the council hall, looking out over the city. Human and Seralith soldiers stood together, tired but victorious. Above, the sky cleared, smoke fading into the light of twin suns. Lysera came to his side. She looked at the soldiers, then at him. You have done more than fight. You have changed them. Both of them. Marcus shook his head. I didn't change them. I just reminded them of what they already had, the strength to fight for something better. The council declared him a hero, not only of the Seralith, but of both peoples. Yet Marcus did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had finally stopped running from war, only to find a new purpose within it. That night, in the quiet garden where glowing plants swayed under moonlight, Marcus made his choice clear. Lysera stood beside him, her hands folded, waiting for his decision. I could go back to Earth now, Marcus said softly. They'd welcome me. Call me a hero, but I know what would happen. Another war, another fight, and I'd be back where I started. He turned to her, his voice steady. Here with you, I see a chance for something different. Not just for me, but for everyone. A chance to build instead of destroy. Lysera's eyes shone. Then you have chosen. Marcus reached out, not as a commander to a servant, but as a man to an equal. She took his hand, her fingers warm against his. Not as a reward, Marcus said. Not as a gift. As a partner. Lysera smiled then, a smile that carried hope through the ruins of war. As a partner, she agreed. And so Captain Marcus Hale, the human soldier who had opened his eyes expecting death, found not only survival, but a new world, a new bond, and a new reason to fight. Not for Earth alone, not for Seralith alone, but for the future they would build together. In the end, it was not weapons or ships that gave the answer to the galaxy. It was humanity. It was the choice to protect, to endure, to hope. It was the choice to say, we stand together.